So yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. Really appreciate it. This is the fourth session of the Graph Builders Office Hours. Real quick introduction for anyone that's new here. This is just a time for everyone to get together and really just do some cool and interesting stuff, or showcase some cool and interesting stuff that you're doing in the Graph ecosystem. So it's really focused on builders and developers, and just trying to dive deep into some of the technology and the tools that are surrounding the Graph ecosystem. Just a quick note, everything here is going to be recorded. So we'll be recording the session and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So if you don't want to be recorded, please, don't speak or ask questions. And if you're not comfortable, just, be sure to leave. But yeah, we will record it. And yeah, so today we're going to be hearing from Mohan. Am I saying your name correctly?
Mohan or Mochan.
Mochan. Okay, cool. So Mochan, maybe you can do a quick introduction and then kind of brief everyone on what you're going to be talking about, and then you can just take it away.
Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone, I'm Mochan from Playgrounds Analytics. I'm one of the founding engineers that's working on some of the cool data products, and I'm going to show off our open source graph toolkit library called Subgrounds. So Subgrounds is like a Pythonic data access layer to the graph subgraphs or any subgraph, and allows you to process and use the data that the graph offers through its APIs in a data analytics type fashion. So, what does that mean, and what can you do with it? I'll jump into that. But as always, feel free to ask any questions in the side chat. I have a couple of the other folks at Playgrounds gonna look at questions and be able to answer them and share links as well. So I suppose we'll get started. I also noticed the event hasn't started. I don't know if you want me to wait for the event in the Discord to start, or I should just jump in.
Perhaps, I don't know if Nick, if you're selling, if you can start it, or if someone else has access to start it. But go ahead and get started. It's okay. Should be fine.
Cool. The first thing I want to do is actually showcase our docs before I kind of dive into some of the code. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is having a really nice set of docs to be able to showcase how people can be using Subground. So by the way, Crypto Mastery, do you think it's possible for you to turn off the push to talk? I realize as I'm typing, it might be a little difficult to have push to talk on.
I can ask him to change it. So you want push to talk off, right?
Or Nick. Okay, we'll
Sorry,
uh,
my mic
well,
was messing up. Let me ask Nick. I'll ask him to turn it off. You want it off, right?
yeah, yeah. Just I don't think I'll be able to type while holding the
Okay.
spacebar.
All right, no problem. I'll have him change it.
Yeah. Anyways, while we kind of get that sorted out, yeah, Subgrounds allows us to leverage the Python, specifically the Python data ecosystem, or data science ecosystem, to work with and manipulate GraphQL. So instead of managing raw GraphQL in your Python code, we provide sort of um, an object and an access layer within Python that goes straight from GraphQL to data frame. So if you have worked with the Python ecosystem in the past or are familiar with it, you might be familiar with some of the data science libraries. Simon, this channel is locked to push to talk for me, I think. Oh,
Okay.
oh wait. No. I'm okay, I think I have the permissions now. This changed. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so if you've ever dived into the Python ecosystem, there's a lot of data science libraries that allow you to work with tabular data sets where you might be used to in spreadsheets, essentially rows and columns. And so Subgrounds allows you to take some of the nested data that the graph provides you and place it in this tabular form so you have an easier time working with it, especially in terms of data analysis and data visualizations and so forth. And so really the start of it is just pip installing Subgrounds. And from there you can kind of work with the primitives that we offer you. So you start using it through the normal API links that you'd be using in a normal front end or through a JavaScript framework like Apollo. But you construct your queries directly through Python and correctly through direct access, where we'll actually validate your query through the schema directly before actually making the query. So that's kind of the start with Subgrounds, and I really urge everyone to kind of check out the docs and spend some time there. But for the demo, I'll go ahead and jump into a coding environment to kind of showcase what Subgrounds can do. So just to do a sanity check, cool. So in VS Code here, I have a Jupyter notebook. These are, if you're unfamiliar with the Python ecosystem, Jupyter notebooks are one of the best ways to interact with data science and with Subgrounds itself. It essentially organizes code into a list of cells, and we can also write some comments here in the form of Markdown, which is super nifty. And so we'll be using this to kind of showcase the power of Subgrounds. So to start with Subgrounds, once you get it installed, I've gone ahead and selected the Subgrounds environment here. And the main way we'll be working with Subgrounds is through the Subgrounds object here. So this provides us the interface to access everything in terms of Subgrounds. So, I'll go ahead and actually share my screen, be a bit easier. So in the docs, you can see we have a bit of an example here. We'll go ahead and just copy this example here, just paste this in here and get rid of some of these things here. So in this example, we're taking the Aave v2 Ethereum subgraph. I can go ahead and open that. This is on the hosted network here, and we can see we have our GraphQL interface for kind of looking at some of the entities in this Aave subgraph. Looks like we're querying markets and we're ordering by the total value locked, getting the first 5 elements of probably the highest Aave v2 markets. And we're going to go ahead and query the name and total value locked for those top 5 markets. So I can go ahead and run this code, and it'll take us to kind of grab that data. You can see here we already have our data frame here. So what's really interesting about Subgrounds and what makes it super useful for data analytics specifically is that we get native pandas data frames. So I can go ahead and save this in a data frame here. And we can see we can get the first 5 elements here. What's super, super nice with these data frames is, in the Python data science ecosystem, we can already start doing aggregations or post-processing outside of accessing this data frame. So we can go ahead and sum up this column, and we can get, okay, here's the sum of the total value locked in USD at the top 5 markets and so forth. And so the power we get with these pandas data frames is that we get access to the entire data science ecosystem without needing to worry about untangling the nested JSON that we usually get from the graph. So this becomes actually really powerful in data visualizations, and I can go ahead and showcase what we can do when we start using some of the data science libraries like Plotly in the future. But you might be wondering, how do we actually use all the features that the graph provides? The graph provides us a lot of features in filtering and sorting. We can kind of see a little bit of that here. But I can kind of show you a bit of a foray into the field paths of Subgrounds. So everything in the Subgrounds world, once you create your subgraph object, is done through this .query object, which kind of correlates to the .query type that you get of your root for your GraphQL schema that you get in all GraphQL APIs. Once you kind of step into your .query, you can start querying any of the top level entities that the subgraph provides, which are generally directly correlated to the top level types that you have. So when you have your account, it's an account type. Also, if you look at accounts, which is a list of accounts, generally getting maybe the top 5 accounts or something, you'll have a list of accounts. And this is directly matched with the entities that you see on the left-hand screen when you log into the GraphQL interface at first. So if I want to get access to the first 10 market daily snapshots, I can just copy this in my code here, and I'll go ahead and make another code cell for this. But if I want to grab Aave v2 dot query dot market daily snapshots, we'll use equals here for Python syntax. And this is unsorted, so it should be pretty quick. We can see here we actually get all of the data markings of those daily snapshots. So one other thing that Subgrounds will actually do is auto-tabulate all the nested entities or subfields within the market daily snapshot. So we have cumulative borrow USD, cumulative deposit USD, cumulative liquidate USD. Instead of manually clicking all these things and figuring out what columns that we do and what don't want, the default in Python is actually, or in Subgrounds, is actually to gather all of these. And so if I were to look at the columns that we have in the data frame, we can see there's actually quite a bit of subfields or sub-entities within market daily snapshots. And so really what we have is we have access to all of the top level entities query object. But we can dive in further. We can grab, we can, say this in a variable as we did earlier. So we can grab the first 10 snapshots here, and we can jump in one extra layer and maybe look at the protocol itself. Maybe grab the, some nested information about the protocol. We can also grab nested list. So minted tokens is a nested list type within, well, we can go somewhere a bit higher. So usage metrics. Oh, this is all in the protocol. Let's go to rates. So for each daily snapshot, we'll have a bit of the data about the rates of this Aave market. And we can actually parameterize this as well. And go in further, we can order these rates by we can do it by the rate itself. So we would do Aave v2 dot rate. Get it descending. And so what subgrounds actually do is, you might expect some nested data from this query here. Oh, we don't have rate here. What's the type of this? If we go to rates, I might have to access it through market daily snapshot. To do market daily snapshot dot rates. And we can just use it through the string form here. Maybe this is not a field I should be ordering by. Apologies. But the main aspect here is that Subgrounds will actually flatten all the data that you get, even in the nested interface. So the example I usually showcase for this is listed in the docs in terms of on this page. So here is something interesting if we'll jump into the curve ecosystem here. So in this query here, we have the curve finance on the Ethereum network. And the data that we're actually gathering here is pretty intricate. So we start with grabbing the first 4 most traded pools on the curve ecosystem. So grabbing the top traded liquidity pools, and we're measuring that by cumulative volume. So within each pool, we're grabbing the 3 highest traded daily total revenue days. And then we're just accessing the name, the daily volume, and the daily total revenue. We can even grab all the different aspects about that pool here. This query is a bit more complicated, so it might take daily. Is this the correct? I'll have to check that on the docs real quick. This might be a misspelling. So the interesting part about Subgrounds is if you do misspell something, the query won't be made. It'll be validated before it's made. So we can quickly check that here. Daily total revenue. Oh, it's USD. They'll always get us. So we have our liquidity pool IDs, and we can look at the name. This top pool is, of course, our 3 pool, which is DAI, USDC, USDT. We have some of the stats about the pool itself, but we also have information about the daily snapshots. So you can see for the 3 pool, we have our 3 top trading days. This is the first 3 rows here. And we can see the top day by total revenue would be probably around 6 mil here. Yeah, something like that. And then we have a 4 mil day and then a 3 mil day. And then in the next pool here, we have USD, BTC, ETH, which is the Bitcoin, Ethereum, USD pool. And we can see also the top 3 pools here. So as we might expect on via normal JSON/nested output that would get directly from the graph, we automatically get tabular data here, which is one of the best benefits. If we're curious on what the nested data is, we can always use query JSON. So I can do this real quick. We can see this is generally the data we would get from the graph. Apologies for scrolling a little too quickly. So you can see this is kind of the raw data that Subgrounds will then process and turn to data frame, or sometimes it can be multiple data frames if you're querying multiple subgraphs at the same time. So we can see here we have all of our nested fields, and then we have some query names that are auto-generated with nested lists as well. So generally what ends up happening is for the nested queries themselves, the nested list will essentially turn into multiple columns or multiple rows in the main data frame. And now that might take some time. Yeah, there we go. And we can see all of the columns here. Am I seeing this? No. And we'll wait for that to run. I'll go ahead and check if we have any questions. I think we're still good to go. So once you have your data in a data frame, you're actually able to do whatever data analysis that you might like. So we actually show this in our Conjure page on the docs. We have a submodule called subgrounds.contrib.plotly, which provides us a couple utilities to create some graphs. So I'll go ahead and show that, since I think it's one of the easier ways to kind of showcase Subgrounds capabilities. So for these examples, it looks like we're using Aave v2, so I'll go ahead and switch back to that. I think I already have that loaded. And we can copy this code here. So here we're grabbing the Aave v2 subgraph. It looks like we're looking at the pair attribute here. So pair would be equal to Aave v2.query.pair. And we're making a simple indicator about the price of token 0. Let's go ahead and see what entity we're talking about here. So we have, looking at pair. Pair might be of a specific market. And we can do input token last price USD. So we can look at the first market, order by. We can do the top cumulative total revenue market, USDC. And we can do, oh, that's not the right one, this one. Look at the input token of that market, and we can look at, I think it's last price USD, last price USD. Oh, and we'll need to import this. So from subgrounds.contrib.plotly import figure. And I'll need indicator as well. Maximum recursion. Yes, this subgraph I think has a bug in it. Let me try the curve one real quick. This one should be curve finance. And we'll just go to liquidity pools. We'll look at the top volume US. And we can look at the output token. Let's price USD will be like this. Pull this correct. Oh, this is obvious. I need a curve. And we should probably load this in. And we'll have to do fig.show figure. And I'll go ahead and start prepping the next example. Here, kind of shows Lido markets here. So we can see here, I'm guessing the highest pull here, if I were to do, it's probably stablecoin for this market. Probably makes sense for curve. If I do sc.query and query this market directly, or I can sorry, query df, we can probably see, yeah, this is DAI USD's UCC, and so the price of this token would be 1, which makes sense. But if I were to get the second one, I think it'd be slightly different. Yeah. So that's a simple indicator, but we can also do other types of plots here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this example from the docs here as well. So here we have Lido, which is a pretty popular subgraph on the ETH staking world. And here we're actually gathering quite a few metrics about it. So first we're looking at daily snapshots, which is pretty nice way to kind of showcase on like a bar or scatter plot. And I'm actually showcasing some of the other features of Subgrounds. So we have synthetic fields being used here, where we're actually converting our raw timestamp that we'll usually get from the graph and converting into a Pythonic datetime object, which has a bit more properties for sorting and so forth. And we're looking at the last 30 days. Yeah, the last 30 days of the usage metrics daily snapshots and plotting the daily active users over time. And we're doing something similar with daily transaction count with the bar chart. So I'm kind of run this. It might take a second here. We kind of run down some of the other features here. So here we're converting the timestamp to date time. Then once we create our figure, we're using some Plotly code here. We actually have Plotly wrappers is how we're passing the Subgrounds objects to the Plotly interface here. And then we can choose what data we actually want to plot here by just using the field paths directly. So instead of actually querying the data in our Python environment, we're just accessing the exact field path we wanted to use, and our wrappers will essentially automatically kind of tabulate that for us. So we can kind of showcase some of our figures here. Here's daily active users over kind of the dates here. Here, our synthetic field has transformed the timestamp into datetime objects, and Plotly really enjoys those because when we zoom in, you can kind of drill in a bit further and even get a bit more precise on the axis. And I'm sure if you start looking at these days in July 2023, I'm sure there was something happening on these days where there's a lot of activity. I remember when I previously showed these examples, I would always do like 1 or 2 year time span. And whenever FTX crashed or when Luna when the Luna Terra scandal happened, we'd always see really high trading days in the 3-curve pool on those days, kind of showcase some of the chaos in the space. Let's go ahead and show figure 2. I think it's called fig2 dot. Yeah, we can see the transaction counts also higher for the number of users, which generally correlates with how we think about that. So that's really a lot of the superpowers and kind of a brief intro into Subgrounds. The last thing I'll kind of dive into is the kind of the world of like hosted network. I've been using the hosted network for all these examples, but you're free to use whichever network you want to. You can even use, if you have any subgraphs in your subgraph studio that you might be developing over time or testing, and you want to have some Python scripts that are like kind of sanity checking the subgraph you deployed, you can also use your studio subgraph here. If I go here, showcase using even raw GraphQL APIs. So snapshot is just provides us a GraphQL API, but you might want to correlate proposals and kind of the scores of those proposals with specific markets to see if there's a correlation between the number of proposals that people are proposing or the the amount of interaction each proposal is getting with like how active the markets are in that ecosystem. Combining data sets is really some of the superpowers you get with being in a data science environment such as Python. And exporting this data is also relatively simple here. So as I was showing earlier, we have our DF here. If we need to export this data and bring it onto another platform such as Excel or something like that, we can easily start exporting this data, and then we have a normal CSV here of all the data. And when we start accessing lots of data, such as if instead of getting the top 5 markets, if we want the top like 5,000 markets, Subgrounds will actually do this without a hitch. So usually what you would have to do in GraphQL, looks like there's only 36 markets. That makes sense. We probably want to do something like swaps. I can show this example with curve. Oops. Where did that go? I'll have to clean this up a little bit when I publish this notebook. But an easy way to do it is probably going by swaps, since there's usually a lot of swaps that are happening. So let's go ahead and get the first maybe 5,000 swaps. Hopefully this won't take too long. Get a good amount of data. And you might be used to the graph's limit of only 1,000 entities acquiring per request. But Subgrounds has some data analytics things built in, since you might be wanting to work with more than 1,000 elements at a time. Subgrounds actually paginates for you behind the scenes and accesses as many rows of data as you want. So if you want access to 10,000 rows, or to be honest, what I see a lot of Subgrounds users do is they'll just type in 1 million. I won't think I'll be able to finish this query since it'd be like 1,000 requests being sent. But if you want to access this many rows, fear not, as Subgrounds will just paginate behind the scenes for you, and you can just grab a cup of coffee, and then when you get your data, you can just save it directly to a CSV so that you have it cached. Lots of data.csv. And then we have all of our data here with automatically getting all the values and stuff like that for each one. So, when you're dealing with the hosted service, you don't necessarily have to worry about GRT or anything like that. But once you start entering the decentralized service, you'll need API keys and so forth. So another thing that we kind of offer at Playgrounds is the Playgrounds API. This is a proxy that sits on top of the decentralized network that the graph provides, where instead of dealing with raw GRT and stuff like that, a Playgrounds API key, which allows you to access the decentralized service without needing to generate a GRT wallet or go through the bank's service. It allows you to start using decentralized service even for free to start with, so you can kind of experiment what the world of decentralized data looks like. So we also have docs on this, and I can kind of show you accessing that page as well. So once you kind of log onto your portal, you can grab a new API key here. So I have a PG API key here. And then once you're in that, within Subgrounds itself, we can actually insert this key directly. And now we can access any decentralized subgraph without needing a GRT key here. So I have an example here of the Aave v2 subgraph from Masari. Masari has a lot of great subgraphs in terms of breadth and spread across a lot of protocols, especially in the lending and DEX sector. And so this is a decentralized subgraph that's being actively curated and generating query fees. And so I can directly copy the subgraph ID here. And then as listed in the docs here, all I need is the API, the playgrounds.network API. And then I can go ahead and add the subgraph ID here. Oops. And we'll call this SG because it's going to be a little confusing. We'll just concatenate these things together and load the Aave v2 subgraph here. And now once we have that loaded, we can kind of access the data as we would a normal subgraph. So if I were to copy this sort of thing here, we can do sg.query df. And we'll just do the first 5 tokens and grab some of the stats about that. And now we have some data that's from the decentralized subgraph. What's nice here is if you were to just use it like this and actually use environment variables, we'll do import OS playgrounds API. We can store it in the environment variable here, and I can actually kill. So I can restart the session here and pretend we have a fresh session. So start with a brand new Subgrounds object and start loading it in. Oh, maybe restarting the session might reset this key, but if I was in a normal terminal environment or environment, I can set this environment variable, and things would work without a hitch. If you're in a non notebook environment, since in the notebook you'll likely be using this from PG key method directly. And this would work for any of the decentralized subgraphs. If you go ahead and look at our portal here, we can see the default plan should have 5,000 queries, and I've only used 78 this month. So there's a pretty generous free plan to be able to just start accessing a lot of the decentralized data sets that exist on that network to kind of get a taste of what the decentralized world can offer. So I think Tachi is putting some links here. I'll go ahead and share some of our docs links. Everything should be available on our docs. Go and paste that there. And I think I've done a decent job demoing some of the capabilities of Subgrounds. So I think there's a lot to uncover within this library, and we're continuously working on this library every week. Just in, I think, 1 week, once we kind of go through the review, I'll be adding a whole async feature, which will allow you to query multiple subgraphs at the same time through Python's async framework natively. And there's a lot of cool things that you can kind of do with that. Pretty cool stuff. So I'll go ahead and open the floor to general questions, I think, as well with the plan. Or
Mochan, thank you so much. That was a really cool demo, and like I think you touched on like everything. Like it was pretty amazing how you kind of flew through all that stuff. And I was going to ask about the async stuff, so that's actually cool to know that that's going to be coming because I think that would be really useful for some projects. I have a question about community, like projects that have adopted playgrounds. Is there any like notable, uh, tooling or other like protocols that have kind of adopted playgrounds and are using it for anything interesting?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, we've seen a couple protocols really use subgrounds in their data analytics flow. One of the most notable ones is actually the Rubicon. So we can go ahead and open our GitHub here, our Subgrounds GitHub. If you land on here, do give us a star to kind of boost us. We'd really appreciate it. Looks like it's sitting over here. Let's see if I can pull up Rubicon here. I'm not sure if we'll be able to. Yeah, I can share that link later. I think I forgot the Rubicon one, but that is a protocol on the Optimism stack. I think also Ethereum Optimism. Let me try to search this up. Yeah, I think they have a data. So it may not be this repo, but they have a data tooling repo as well. It seems Optimism is also using Subgrounds tooling for some of their data analytics work. So it's pretty interesting. We also have a whole set of examples from people in our community that are using Subgrounds for specific work. So we have some analysis on some of the exchanges out there. Some of my favorites are some of the more complex research things, such as MEV research, which is already pretty complicated on its own. But we have one person in our community that's really putting out some really high quality work in that space. And then we have some Olympus style protocols like Klima DAO, and we also have Beanstalk Analytics that are using Subgrounds for some of their analytics workflow and sort of dashboarding stuff like that. So Klima Playgrounds was one of the projects that we actually worked on a while ago that they've expanded on their own in terms of dashboarding, which is super neat. Yeah, this one I'm not sure if it's still alive, but we can check. Oh yeah, this one's still alive. That's awesome. We'll see if their subgraph might have updated. Yeah, so this was one of the older dashboards. They definitely have a newer one now, but this whole interface was built in Python using some of our dash wrappers. Oh wow, no, the subgraph has not updated. Looks like yeah, this data is still active for the most part, which is pretty neat.
Right.
So if you're interested in building your own data dashboard or are interested in kind of tracking different aspects of protocol, Subgrounds is one of the easiest ways to get started with that because it lives in the Python ecosystem and leverages some of the Python superpowers that exist in the data science world. So that's super nifty.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions that they want to bring up? Okay, if no one has questions, I have one more question. So
Mhm.
your demo was great. Like you went through a lot of examples, and I think we'll have this as a replay. What about like for people that want information? Obviously, the docs is a good resource. Is there like a workshop or like any kind of videos that kind of are a little bit more tutorial style that people can use if they're getting started with playgrounds?
Yeah, for sure. So in our docs, we also have a videos tab. So we also have worked closely with the Metrics DAO community, where we've done a couple product sessions and workshops with them, where we kind of dive in more in depth, showcase some examples here. So particularly, I think today's demo was pretty similar to Intro to Subgrounds, but in workshop 1 and 2, we actually dive in really more in depth in Subgrounds and showcase how you can combine multiple subgraphs together, combine their data sets, start getting some interesting analysis here. For example, in Curve Wars, what's really interesting in this session is we kind of go into analyzing the curve subgraph alongside other convex subgraphs and start studying the relationship between these two protocols and understanding the impact of you know various days in the ecosystem, such as the Lunaterra collapsed had a large ramification on the crypto ecosystem as a whole. But if you start diving into some of the data from the curve subgraph and the convex subgraph, you can start getting an understanding of what actual activity was happening based on the Luna collapse. So this is where we dive in more in depth. Another thing I'll shout out is our Discord, our Playgrounds Discord, which we'll share um, as well in the channel. I'm sure Tachi will drop a link. And here we actually host our own Subgrounds and Chill office hours every Friday. So that's something that happens. I'm in PST right now, so it'd be noon PST, but whatever time zone you're in. And that's where we just spend an hour or two answering any questions that community members might have. Sometimes we're just working on random projects that might be pretty interesting, or I think we've messed around with AI and Subgrounds. We've messed around with different UIs to interface with Subgrounds, or we just kind of talk about data in general, just trying to have a conversation of data analytics and crypto as a whole. So there's lots of ways to kind of get interacting with Subgrounds and with data analytics in general. If you're interested or if you haven't really thought much about it, we love to have you in our community.
Great, thank you. Any last questions, guys? Okay. Moshan, thank you so much. I know this was last minute for you to come on, so really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you so much for awesome presentation and demo. Um, okay, does anyone have any else thing they wanted to bring up in relation to the graph, or any technical questions or anything you guys wanted to talk about? Great. Okay, cool. I guess that's good for today. And oh, sorry, I got cut off there for a second. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the Graph Builders Office Hours. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.